Good morning. Call to order the meeting of the Michigan State Capitol Commission for March 3rd, 2025. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. We don't have a lot of heavy business today, but we have some very interesting things that our executive director is going to present to you. There's a lot going on in this building, and we want to make sure that everybody knows what's happening, make it very transparent and very open, because you're going to see a lot of work around here, and we're going to get a lot of information today about what it's all about. At that, Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Chair Candler,
Here.
Vice Chair Bauer. Here. Mr. Bowman. Mr. Hobbs. Mr. Oberlin.
Here.
Mr. Starr.
Here.
4 members are present.
That's a quorum. Here, the next item on the agenda is establishment of a meeting date. I think our secretary has checked around with everybody, and the date of April 7th has worked out for everybody so far. Is that correct? Still okay? It'll be our next meeting date then. So has everybody read the minutes, looked at the minutes? Any questions, concerns, corrections? No, Commissioner Hobbs is present. Anybody make a motion for Commissioner Bauer? Support?
Move the approval.
Commissioner Oberlin? Any objections to approval of minutes? No objections, minutes are approved. That was quick. Now let's get into the real meat of the meeting today. The Executive Director, Rob Blackshaw, you would come up, Rob, and give us an update on all the projects you have going. Some of the projects you have going, some of the really big ones. Small portion of them, but very important ones. Thank you, Rob.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. There's just a few projects I want to update you on, and then we're going to take a digital tour of the Capitol today. You've heard me talk a lot about the BIM model, the historical BIM model, and we're going to give you a tour of it today to show you our progress and to really explain, well, we'll illustrate why we're getting so much attention drawn to it. But first of all, for those who walked in earlier today, you heard the hornets buzzing. That was the Lansing Glass Company cutting out the grout in the glass floor. So just to reiterate this whole project, this is a 5-phased project. Each phase is about 2 months long. The first 2 weeks of each project is removal of the glass, and then Lansing Glass cutting out the grout all the way back to bare metal. Once they get to bare metal, our painters come in and paint the underside of that quadrant to make sure this is all evenly painted. Right now, we know that Lucid Glass is actually starting to manufacture the glass, and by the time they finish it, they say they can have about 170 pieces every 4 to 6 weeks. So let's just say at the end of April, new glass will start arriving, Lansing Glass will start installing it, put in the grout. We then rotate to the next phase and do it again. We did have a lot of concerns with the noise, so what we're doing, finishing this week with the daytime crew, and then every phase moving forward, we'll have the noisy work at night after 5 o'clock. We've talked with Lansing Glass. There is a small premium, but nothing that'll break the bank, but is definitely worthwhile because it is very loud. And as soon as you climb the North Annex steps, it sounds like a hockey horn going off, and then you realize it's hornets or you're trying to figure out what it is, but it's very disruptive. Tour groups were having difficulty hearing what was going on, so I can only imagine what's going on inside of the offices. And I talked to the clerk of the house, and they had some issues as well, so it was a good decision to move it to the night staff. The landscape master plan, you've heard me talk about this in the past. In 2023, we redid that based on the original Dick Frank landscape master plan from the restoration time, and we're getting ready to start doing work on that. So we're working with Beckett and Rader, landscape architects, who put that last one together. We are looking for creating a first phase, and the first phase is basically taking care of a lot of the larger trees on Capitol Avenue that have become hazard trees. We call them hazard trees because the large branches are continually falling. We know a year and a half ago when there was a farmer's market, a wind kicked up and one of the large branches fell on one of the farmer's market's tents. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but that's when we thought we better move on this now before someone gets injured. So before we do this, we are working with them actively. I'll come together with a plan to the commission for approval to show you what trees we're going to remove and then how we're going to start replanting the trees based on the master plan. So that's something that's going to be happening this summer, but the next few meetings, I'll bring more information with you. So if you're ever questioned, you'll know why, because we all know when you remove any tree or a bush on the grounds, it becomes a big deal, because in the past, those could have been a memorial tree or not, but it's good to have talking points that we all can be consistent with our messaging. The fourth floor ceiling project, we are getting ready to accept bids this week and next, and we will make selection on the final vendor. We have 3 major decorative painting companies bidding on this. They all want this job, which is great, but this will be a great check on price, as well as making sure that we have the best craftsmen available. We know a lot of the projects have already started, and a lot of these groups share the painters that work for them, so we want to make sure we have the best painters of whatever group they can align to make sure that we get the highest quality work here at the building. So a lot more to talk on that. I'll probably focus on the 4th floor ceilings and the glass floor as a primary next time. But just definitely wanted to make sure you heard that from me. We were open this past weekend, and the first 2 weekends we are open on Saturdays. We had 80 visitors, 50 visitors. We had over 260 visitors Saturday. I turned on my computer and was looking through the security cameras and noticed groups of 20 and 30, and sure enough, May Euler reported back to me and said we had over 260 visitors this Saturday, which is great. I didn't anticipate having this large of a number come back this quickly, but it just goes to show there is a demand for it. So I think we made the right choice of preparing this and getting it open for folks. So we will continue doing one Saturday a month. I think we said 6 months to a year, and then we'll get back and evaluate to see how many more Saturdays that we have. But I wanted to make sure I shared that with the commission before I moved on to the next topic. The next topic, Lucas, would like to join me, please? I'm going to give you all a demonstration. You've heard me talk a lot about the BIM model. Well, now it's time to share with you digitally because, Bill.
Rob, you want to explain what it is?
I sure will.
Yeah, thanks.
You've heard me talk a lot about it. So in order to explain what we're doing here, I do need to go back and explain how it's originated. So what we do, we start with what they call a BIM model, or a building information model. BIM models are the modern tools used by architects and engineers to design, develop, and create drawings for project. These digital technologies are generally what have replaced paper drawings. So each architect and engineer can transition all their two-dimensional designs into a three-dimensional format. As time goes on, technology improves, leaving building managers and building owners with a repository of the architectural and engineering work all in one place, is what you see here. In the past, I remember after the restoration project, we had probably 40 to 50 packs of papers which had all that, and you'd have to reference it. Now we have it at the end of our fingers. So that's what a BIM model is. It's a three-dimensional model of all the designs and efforts put into the building. What we have now is what they call an HBIM, a historical building information management model. So we take the BIM model, which is the engineer and architectural tool, and now we're turning it into a facility management tool. So the HBIM is using the BIM as the management tool, and we are creating our HBIM with the use of Autodesk Tandem, which is now called a digital twin. I don't know if you guys have heard about digital twins in other industries. So like mechanical folks will make a digital twin, and then they'll run simulated tests on it to see how things perform or how it works or how it conflicts with other systems. We are doing that essentially the same way. So we've created a digital twin with Autodesk. And Autodesk, you'll hear me reference, that is the name of the software company that creates a plethora of products for them. But Tandem is the product we're using for our digital twin, also known as the HBIM. Now, I'm giving a lot of names, but it is very sophisticated, and the more you're exposed to it and you hear the nomenclature, the terms, you really will understand it, and we're going to try to make it as basic as possible. In fact, our HBIM currently acts as a portal now to many of our systems and databases. So what does that mean? When you get into our digital twin, we have our building management system attached to it. We have the decorative surface integrity values attached to it. We have our mechanical, electrical attached to it. We have our website linked to it. We have photographs linked to it. We have documents of all of our equipment linked to it. and we're just getting ready to start. So we are really have made a lot of progress. Also, as we build this model, I'm throwing a lot at you already, but as we build this model, we decided to pause on trying to develop everything at once. We decided to focus on one area, which we'll use the governor's suite, and we're going to build that out with everything possible. Laser scan our furniture, put in the portraits, laser scan lighting, put in pictures of the carpet, put in pictures of the decorative ceilings, put in everything that we can track, evaluate it, and then go through the building and add all those elements that are necessary moving forward. Now, every room in the floor in the building won't get the same treatment either. If you're familiar with our term preservation zones, we know that floors 1, 2, and 3 are our highest levels of preservation in the building. From a workman standpoint, we address those with the finest detail. We try to get the right plaster recipes. We use the right paints that were used when they put this building together. Everything goes to the nth degree. But if we're in the floor in a mechanical room, those are more modern materials. We don't really need to detail as much. We can put boxes or squares that represent these elements that won't have that level of detail. So anyway, since the beginning, Lucas Ketchum has been with me the whole time, and he's our technical guru on staff, and I'd be lost without him. But he understands the project and how extremely valuable it is, and we're all learning to navigate it, and it is a sophisticated technology. Without further ado, let's go for a ride, and let's show you some of the highlights and illustrate some of its capabilities. So this first scene right here, you'll see it is the full Capitol. We call it the bird's eye view. But when you get on there and you start moving it around, you can start seeing different elements. As you can see, there's the entrance of Heritage Hall, there's the entrance of our garage, there's our grounds, and our landscape master plan will be clicked right on this. So eventually, imagine in the future, you'll see landscape. You can click on a tree as an element. It'll tell you what kind of tree it is, when it was planted, the last time it was fertilized, and when's the next time scheduled maintenance. So every detail will be attached, again, at the computer screen. But even the level of detail here is pretty impressive. So I think that's good for the scene one. Let's go to the next scene, Lucas. What we're going to do is cut the building in half and start getting inside and start seeing some of the detail that's being developed already. So as I mentioned before, there is a level of detail that we put on each floor, and that accompanies what I said with our preservation zones. So if you look at floors 1, 2, and 3, you can start seeing the level of detail. You can see the marble floors, you can see the glass floor, you can see the flag cases. You can even go to the rotunda and start seeing objects where the portraits are. You can see some of the chamber desks in there, and we'll go and talk about that a little bit more. So Lucas, if you want to click on one of the portraits, and you can see there it takes us right there to Jennifer Granholm on the tour. So as we're beginning to add artwork to the HBM, you can see that it provides us a link to the arts webpage that Barb Thamuto and Shayla Croto maintain and keep up the date, history, and information, including the preservation and conservation cleaning and repair, scheduling information for all of our portraits. Again, all at the edge of your fingertips. In the short future, I'm going to bring the commission a 100-year portrait movement plan that we're putting together. So we're trying to figure out in the next 100 years how many more portraits will be added to the building and where they're going to be placed and what happens to the existing portraits that are up there. We think putting this 100-year plan together, bring it to the commission to memorialize it, will prohibit in the future of anyone not knowing where they're going to put a portrait if it doesn't get stuffed into a warehouse, or hey, we can move this anywhere we want. I think it's important, as we do with the landscape master plan, is to have a movement plan that's memorialized by the commission to, be preservation forward thinking is what I'm really trying to get to. Let's go to the House chamber. check and see the level of detail that we've already put in here. So we're in the process of analyzing and trying to determine which pieces of furniture to add to this model. We don't want to add everything because I don't think everything is worthy of trying to keep track. But we're focusing on structures like the rostrums, the legislators' historical desks, the antique clocks, and the light. So Brian Page, our registrar, is helping overseeing this portion of the project and going through the building on especially the first through third floors and trying to make a determination of what's really worthy of putting in this model. If we put everything in here, it'd take a long time for it to generate, and it really would become a cumbersome tool. We want this to be a repository and a first source to click to all the databases and things that this entire group works on together. So we recently had a company come in by the name of Direct Dimensions, and we're working with them closely. They've laser scanned the desks. They've even helped us because we now know that our molds for our decorative hardware are rotten, and we no longer can make molds out of it. We are out of hardware, and we need to get more. They've scanned them, and I can bring this next time for show and tell. They have a three-dimensional model that I can send to an antique hardware company. They can make models based off these scans, and voila, we can order new historical hardware that'll match what we have in the building to the nth degree. So the best part too, when we get these digital scans and work with them, we also send them to our architect of record, Quinn Evans. They verify a few dimensions, and then they put them into the model, and it's 100% accurate. Let's go to the governor's office. The governor's office and suite and parlor, as I said, this is one of our highest decorated and one of our most highest levels of historic preservation in the entire building. Yep, that's okay. We're just navigating through, as you can say, you can kind of walk through the building and get to places too digitally. I did mention that we met with our architects and engineers recently and started the discussion of how do we develop and add elements into the building. It was determined as the group to use the governor's office suite as our test area, and this is what you see here. So eventually you will see decorative painting, you will see the artifacts a little bit more. But the cool thing is here, if you want to scan up to the ceiling, you can click on the ceiling as an element, and then we have high resolution pictures. So these pictures are so high resolution, you can scan right in and monitor cracks and different types of ornamentation. So if we took these pictures, let's say once a month, and compared them to the months before, you will really be able to see the movement. So he'll click on this picture where this is an actual photograph recently taken, and you can now see the condition of the ceiling from a very close point. What's the benefit of this? It helps us monitor it without having to take in ladders or move antique furniture. So we can still do a physical inspection without having to move a bunch of furniture, which damages most of the time, or just by chance they drop a ladder on something, which incurs more damage. So we think this is a really great place to move forward as well.
Rob, can I ask you a question before you go any farther?
Yes.
Is this a point at which you could show us, like, behind the walls? You're going to get to that point, too, and show us?
Yep, we'll get there.
Yeah, good. Perfect.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Let's go to the heat map. Click, hover over the picture. There you go. What we're seeing here is a direct connection to our building management system, and this software illustrates live temperature and humidity readings throughout the building. We all know that there's no proper expansion joint or vapor barrier to the Capitol building, so monitoring the temperature and the humidity is very, very important. If you have too much expansion and contraction on the plaster, it cracks. If you have too much expansion and contraction on the paintings, it starts to flake. So it's very important, which is one of the reasons we did our CIU project, but monitoring these moving forward is very important. So this is just a slice of the first floor. You look at the bottom left, you can see the temperature range from 68 degrees to 76 degrees, and then you take that and look up into the building, and you can get live temperatures right now, what's happening in the building. We can also go down and see if you want to do the humidity, but this is something that our engineers are already using in the morning. Before they even do their physical walkthroughs, they pull this up and see if there's any hot spots or cold spots. If they see that, they start investigating the equipment in that room immediately. So it makes them work smarter, not harder. They still do their physical walkthroughs every day, but now they can focus on the pieces of equipment that aren't working properly immediately instead of trying to discover it on their walkthroughs. So this digital representation of this, or the heat map, is being implemented through the entire building. And again, it's using all the tools that we have and putting it in one location to make us work harder and smarter. Let's go MEP. So what I'm going to show you here, I'm taking all the walls away. Bill just asked to see what's behind the walls. Well, what you're getting ready to see here is the mechanical and electrical systems that are behind the walls right now. We have everything in the exact building. You can see all the fans and everything through. The one thing we don't have is all of our plumbing. The plumbing is something that we're adding. But imagine, as Bill mentioned, if we had a leak on a plaster wall on third floor. We could turn that wall off and see what plumbing is behind it. More importantly, we need to add our shut-off valves. Shut-off valves are valves that'll stop the water flow in a building, so we can have this on the weekend. Central control operator can see it, go up to third floor, turn that valve off as everyone's coming here. It'll save thousands and thousands of dollars, if not damaging historic fabric, if we ever have that. But also, we don't have it in here today, but there's something called flow. You can tap on the water source from the building and then tap on, let's say, a sink on the fourth floor. It'll show you the path of that water flow all the way to the fourth floor sink. And also there's arrows in there that shows you the direction of the water flow. So adding those shut-off valves with that flow really is pretty detailed. If you want to go down into the cup real quick. So down in the central utility plant, as you can see, here's all of our equipment down there. And we can click on those and we can get operating owner's manuals and everything to it. There's so much we can do to it right away. The other thing that we have attached to this already is our facility maintenance software, which is our work order program. I can go in and click on that, and it'll give me the history of any maintenance that was performed on these pieces of equipment, and it'll tell me when the next inventory, the next schedule of maintenance is necessary. Again, all at the fingertips of our computer screens. It's really a very valuable tool, as you can see already. So Justin Snyder from our mechanical team is very familiar with the BIM, and he is helping us lead that portion of the model. Let's go to scene number 8. Let's go to the BCA decorative surfaces. So you've heard us talk about BCA in the past. BCA is our building conservator and associates. They're our decorative painting and plaster experts. 6 years ago, they put together a very informative and deep. It was 600 pages deep. And as you can see, they highlighted every decorative surface in here, and they added an integrity value to it. So these integrity values are when was the plaster installed and or work on last. So if it's green, we know it was last touched, its original fabric from the 1879. If it's pink, we know that it was touched during the restoration project, or orange. If it gets yellow, we know that it's past the restoration, and on and on. So now when we get here, we now understand the last time these were touched and what are the plaster formulas, but it's a lead right into what we do. We did this based on our trip to Mount Vernon, or my trip to Mount Vernon, which was probably 9 years ago now, and you've heard me reference Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon was the first people to have an HBIM after their use of a BIM model, and they color-coded everything. So we are crawling under Mount Vernon, Quinn Evans Architects and Chrisman Construction and I, and we had on augmented reality goggles, and they had a bunch of green dots. Well, the green dots, I asked, what are the green dots? They said, well, those are time stamps of nails that George Washington actually put in the building and are still remaining. So just hearing that and the history of it is why we started establishing preservation zones and integrity values for our historic plaster and painting in the building. And as you can see, there isn't a surface that we haven't evaluated as of yet. So now it's a matter of maintaining that, managing that, and creating our projects to update and keep all this information up to speed. Let's go to the glass floor. So our current project is our glass floor, and everything we're working on right now is cut into phases. But anything that's highlighted in pink is a piece of glass that was replaced after the 1930s fire. This is how many pieces that were removed, and, you know, a picture says 1,000 words here. Anything that's yellow or black was replaced after 1940 and anywhere up to 2023. So anything that you say is just gray are original tiles, and these are the tiles that we are creating to match. So when we're done, the rest of it will be wiped back. The history will be in there as a layer, so we can still reference. If we click on a single piece, it'll give you the history of that actual space of what's happened over the last 145 years, all at the tip of our fingers. Let's go straight up to the Oculus here. So as you can see, you can look right up, just like you're a school kid, and you look right up into the Oculus, and we can even tap on the Oculus as a view, and you can show our latest picture of what's up there to this day. So again, it really gives a highlight detail. This is just a snapshot, and there's so much more, but you think of all the databases that we manage, whether it's artifacts, decorative surfaces, mechanical equipment, on, is all now at the fingertips of this, and it's so important. You've heard me talk in the past about the HBIM and the amount of attention that we're getting. We lead the nation in the development of our HBIM. Our architectural engineering partners are fielding calls every single week of why and how Michigan State Capitol has taken it to this level. Once we show it to people and they realize the amount of information that we have at our fingertips so we don't have to search, if we had this 10 years ago, we would have been able to get through our BIM model or our CIU project a lot quicker because we'd have that information. Imagine in the future if we want to replace the ductwork. I have the capabilities to do an actual square footage of all the ductwork in the building. So let's just say it's 10,000 square feet of ductwork. I didn't know that before this CIU. They could have given me a bid for 12,000, and we just said, oh, that's great. Now I can say, no, we only have 10,000, so we have all this accurate data. It's square feet of the actual surface they're working on, so it'll help us with calendarization and work. It'll help us with making sure that the pricing is right in there, and it helps us maintain it, and most of all, it helps us be the best stewards that we can be. As you heard me talk about this, I do want to brag a little bit. The Autodesk Tandem team, who we're working with, used this as a beta project at the national conference, and it has received a ton of attention from them. In fact, Autodesk received a call from their United Kingdom office saying, do you guys like to have a conference call with the Michigan State Capitol and you? We have a client who's undergoing a very large restoration, and they want to talk to us about how we're using this project. We are always happy to help. It was a little intimidating because the client just happened to be the House of Parliament, and I kid you not. So they're going through a $5 billion restoration, and they're coming to little old Lansing to see what we're doing with our BIM model. So we're super excited about that, but with that, we feel like the pressure's on to make sure we keep the momentum going and keep improving this model as a tool that'll be great, great, great for the future. The last thing I want to talk about is just to give a little story. In 1998, it was about me. I was the only person on staff who knew how to navigate the AutoCAD system. It really tracked a lot of things. It really helped us track roof leaks. Anytime there was a roof leak, we'd pull up the roof plan and put a little X on it, and every time you put the dates on, so after about 4 or 5 months, I turned on all the dates, and it really showed the areas where they were leaking, and it helped us determine where the leak was coming in. So the digital information monitoring was very, very valuable. I left and worked on other projects. It was the project manager for the Anderson House office building at the time. But then again, I returned back to the Capitol in December of 2015. I turned on my computer for the first time in a long time, and there was the AutoCAD icon. I turned it on, clicked on the AutoCAD to look at some of the digital floor plans, and it said, last time open, 1998 by Rob Blackshaw. So as funny as that is, it also made me think about there is a ton of valuable information that if we don't have the proper training for folks, it's going to get lost. I was the only one back then, but right now, as you see, I've onboarded Lucas Ketchum, Justin Snyder, Brian Page, and Shayla, and we're going to develop this in the next year, I would say, to get it to a point where we can turn it over for the rest of the staff to use and navigate. But we don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen, so I have one person from each discipline to really help us develop this. And as you can see how it's developed thus far, this time next year, I'll bring it back to you all again and show you just how much progress that we've made. I know that the Quinn Evans team is super excited to work with us. Chrisman Construction is excited because everything we have here is just valuable information that we can get very, very quickly. So continued training with a passionate understanding on how this HBIM work will help the Capitol building for decades to come and have that comparative analysis of everything else. As again, we always strive to be the best stewards of this building, and this is one major tool that I shared with you today. It's very technical. It is just the highlights that I shared. As you can tell, you can really get into it and get lost in the weeds. But at this point, I'll open it up for any questions that you may have.
We have a question? Commissioner Bauer?
Fascinating. So I think you answered this, but who has access right now? You talked at the end about, and then eventually all the staff will
Right
have
now,
access.
Quinn Evans Architects is our main. So what they're doing, they work with this every single day. So even as our internal staff, we will modify, make modifications, send them to them to do the actual modifications because you can mess it up pretty quickly. We can modify our databases and update all that information because that's the databases that we access. And then, so we have myself and 4 other people on site have access to it to navigate and learn. And then we'll open it up to the rest of the staff once
And
we get to a
eventually
certain
the rest of the
point.
staff, and kind of where I'm, so it's an internal tool. The public doesn't have access. Because where I'm going is
Yeah.
obviously like security issues.
Yes. So at the end of the national conference, I stayed an extra day and met with Autodesk. They wanted to have a Q&A session, and they want to know what our thoughts were next. So, right, I can add all of our icons of our security cameras. You can tap on that camera, and it'll take you to that live action feed. So this can become a training tool for Michigan State Police, which First Lieutenant Jay Poupard understood that. But Autodesk doesn't have the system set up for firewalls and filters. So there is really no way at this point we could turn it over to the general public because we don't want them to know everything that's going on inside the building and all the equipment.
And that's really more where my question was going. I mean, I'm sure with a project this large, but that you've looked at security risks about people hacking into it, or would this be information people could get anyway about the Capitol? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of the blueprints are out there, so the main floor plans are really open to the general public. But a lot of the systems that we work on, we do not want them to have access to it. We don't want hackers coming in and turning the temperature off in Scott's office or turning the lights off in Secretary of the Senate's office. Those are all accessible through the system in a certain way. Once the firewalls get better, and they are working on this as we speak, there may be an opportunity to open this up in the future for the public. What we can do in the future, the quick future, is create little videos that shows navigation. So you can say, hey, if you're at the Heritage Hall entrance, how do I get to the governor's office? You can hit a button and it'll navigate you through like a video game and show you how to get there. So those are things we're thinking of to turn over to the public first, but eventually with even a game module or like a live webcams, eventually we'll have access to this model so that people can just navigate at their leisure.
Yeah. And again, maybe I watch too many movies, too many Netflix, but just the fear that we do need to keep information about the building secure, correct?
I agree with you 100%, and I have the exact same fear, and that is why we're not turning it over to the general public yet. We'll share it, use it as an internal tool, because we do see how valuable it is. Even when we have contractors and architects come in who get access to it, it's very limited of what we share.
Commissioner Hobbs?
Rob, thank you for that presentation. I think this is like watching technology just bring alive like a Capitol, like in no way that I could have ever imagined. How about I put it that way? So I kind of, when I see this, I kind of go back to, my personal experiences, as a first grade teacher, as an elementary school teacher. So I appreciate the internal use of it. I really do, and I get it. I understand operations, and I can see how valuable this is going to be for you and your team. And you kind of talked about it a little bit before already, you know, with Commissioner Bauer's question around security, and I understand that that's going to develop. I guess, you know, I would just say, and I just want to be a little bit more pointed about it, I would say I would love to be able to see this, you know, in some fashion be used in an external way. Because when I was a teacher and I'm trapped on the east side of Detroit and not able to get my kids to the Capitol, you know, for a Capitol Day, I mean, this right here could have been, you know, a game changer, you know, for me and my lesson plans and exposure, right, you know, for kids. And so I would just continue to kind of press on that piece and let you know that as long as I'm here, that's going to always be a question. It's like, when are we able to do that? And so, and I think you kind of talked a little bit, and I appreciate this piece that you shared, the videos. I'm hoping, you know, that if I could be helpful in any way, you know, to help you think through that and connect with constituencies and other stakeholders outside, more than helpful. I mean, more than happy to be helpful to you and the team on that piece. But I think this is absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll stay focused on that.
Please.
Any other questions, anybody? Mr. Starr.
Backing up a little bit, I just want to thank Rob personally for adjustments to the glass floor project scheduling, particularly for our sergeants that are stationed outside the chamber on the ground floor, right in the middle of the fray. It's very welcome news, so thanks for helping us out there.
I'm glad I can help.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you got here early enough, but it was pretty loud out there when we first walked in here. As Rob said, it sounded like a hornet's nest, but I think we've got it handled now. Any other questions, comments? Thanks. Oh, Commissioner Bauer.
And I'm really glad to hear about the Saturday attendance. This last time, I was really impressed with the social media coverage. You know, I saw it several times on my Facebook posts from the Capitol, and I think that helped a lot. Apparently, a lot of people saw that, and I'm thinking, and that a lot would be more, you know, in my community, which is Lansing. So, glad to hear that. Glad that we're doing that, and just say again, and I think we probably all agree, you know, that it would be wonderful to increase the number of Saturdays that we're open. I know we have to evaluate it, but I would encourage us to continue to do that for the people of our state.
Thank you. We have been working with our marketing team, and we hit LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, and we make sure that we add those a couple times the week prior so everyone knows. And we know that that outreach is really improved, and we're working on improving more outreach. If you all live in different areas and you think of something that we could add to even make it more, makes it better, please let us know, because we'll do everything we can to improve that.
Thanks. Any other business from any of the commissioners? Any public comment? Anybody from the public have anything to say? Any comments? No, if not, well,
Do I mention state of the state at all? Do you want to ask Rob about state of the state at all? He mentioned having a short report the other day.
yeah, Rob, did you have, you want to give us a little bit of report on how things went for the state of the state?
Yes, I do. This year, we modified a little bit from last year's State of the State. If you remember, last year was the first year we used the entrance through Heritage Hall. We had a large gathering down there, but the check-in was in the south lobby, so people came in, got down to the lobby, got their credentials, went upstairs. We had over 100 people last year down there without credentials, and then when it came time to come upstairs, it was really hard making sure everyone had their credentials around their neck. And we all know when people are here in the building and excited to get upstairs, they don't want to be stopped and say, where's your credential? So to modify that this year, based on some research, we pushed the credentialing to the Heritage Hall lobby and then brought the security immediately inside. We put up tents on the outside with heaters just to anticipate cold weather. It wasn't cold, but we know in the future it could be, so we wanted to test it out. This really, really worked well beyond our imagination. We had a ton of people still come in. I think we had 835 people come through those doors between 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And even that whole day with tours, we had over 4,000 people come in the building that day. So the Evolve system did the work. The flow was really nice. When people got into the building, they all had their credentials. They didn't bring food upstairs. It really worked well. We are very pleased with how it worked with minimal issues. We had a couple people trying to get into the doors. In the very end, said they're running late, but they didn't have credentials and didn't go through any security monitoring. So we had to be a little aggressive. I'll say I had to be a little aggressive, I'll just say it. But it went away really quickly because once they understood the why, they followed suit and they got in very quickly. But we were really pleased with the numbers and we're pleased with how they flowed through the building.
Good job.
Thank you.
Any questions? Entertaining a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Mr. Bauer moves and Commissioner Starr supports. Without objection, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Grant. Thanks so much.